Welcome to Future Human, the series, the podcast where the team here at Silicon Republic explores the future of everything. I'm Anne O'Dea. In this episode, we're looking at the future of work. We're exploring how jobs, careers and workplaces are being transformed by new technologies and a new generation of workers. This series is made possible by our presenting sponsor, Hays, that's Hays, is the world-leading expert in recruitment and workforce solutions, specialising in the professional and technical sectors and skills. Thanks to their support, the rest of this episode will be totally ad-free. To access great advice and insights, visit haztechnology.com/blogs. The history of work is marked by waves of transformation in our economies, our communities and our lives. And a lot of these waves began with the emergence of new technologies. New construction materials, new energy sources, new machines brought with them new jobs and new ways of working. Emerging technologies today have led to what many call a new industrial revolution. Artificial intelligence and generative AI in particular is probably top of most people's lists today. It has raised its head several times throughout this series and indeed in our own work at Silicon Republic. Opinions differ as to whether it will threaten jobs or just fundamentally transform those jobs. Without a doubt, it's already transforming how we do business, how we work and live. And this episode of the podcast was an opportunity to sit back and look at how AI is influencing the world of work. But it was also an opportunity to explore something much more human, how our feelings about work have changed and continue to change. The COVID-19 pandemic marked a turning point for a lot of workers and industries. Many of us who could work during the pandemic began to do so remotely, and even though it was born of necessity, it opened up a lot of opportunities for workers and their employers. And we've since been asking a lot of important questions about the role of physical workspaces and indeed hybrid work patterns. So stick with me, because in this episode we'll hear from three fascinating guests, each with unique perspectives on how the world of work might evolve in the coming years, especially for younger generations who've joined the workforce in these times of major technological and cultural change. Big thanks on this episode to Silicon Republic editor Jenny Darmody, who did the running on the interviews, as the future of work is a particular area of expertise and fascination for Jenny. She began by speaking to longtime Future Human speaker and contributor Monica Parker to get a sense of what's driving some of the changes in how we work.
My name is Monica Parker, and I am an author and entrepreneur. I am American, but now I live in Europe. I studied design in undergrad and went on to get my master's degree in organizational behavior. But I took a bit of a dog-legged turn, and I was a homicide investigator for the Department of Justice, working with men and women on Florida's death row. And what that taught me was that the environment that we surround ourselves with, whether it be our social environment, our physical environment, has a tremendous impact on the way that we behave and our well-being and the decisions we make. And so I've sort of carried that through to where I am now. And now I am the founder of a company called Hatch, and we're a human analytics and change consultancy, and we specialize in the future of work. And I also am an author of a book called The Power of Wonder, and seeing how wonder can help us as an emotion to live and learn and lead more effectively. Mostly really the derivatives of wonder, things like empathy, humility, ethics that are so desired now from our leaders. And, you know, wonder shared is wonder multiplied. So using wonder as a mechanism for bringing teams together can be really effective. We know from research that it increases creativity, that it creates what's known as small self. So it makes us feel smaller, therefore it makes our worries feel smaller. It also takes away a lot of the ego in our decision making. There's some fascinating research that shows that wonder-based leadership means that leaders are more effective in communicating to their middle management, which is a really important element, I believe. And some other fascinating research around creativity, patience, all of the elements that we want from a leader, we can find as a derivative of wonder.
In this series, we look to the future because it's an important thing to do, but also because we're curious. Something Monica believes is a key skill that we must hone as leaders and we must encourage in our teams. It's a theme she tackles beautifully in her best-selling book, The Power of Wonder, which I highly recommend, by the way. Sometimes we talk about the future of work as though it's an upcoming seismic shift to fear, to look forward to, or to prepare for, depending on your role. But as Monica points out, it's much more nuanced than that.
I mean, I do love the quote that says the future is here, it's just not evenly distributed. And I think that that's what we're seeing. You know, there will always be a future, so there will always be a future of work. What's interesting, I think, is for those of us who have been in this for a while, we're seeing the predictions from when we were younger coming true. And so maybe it feels like, okay, we've arrived, but of course we haven't. You know, we know it took a pandemic to make hybrid working a thing. We've been saying it's going to be a thing and we've been battling against it. Now it finally is a thing. We can't put the toothpaste back in the tube on that one, thankfully. Of course, you can look to the future and see things like AI. You can even the phrase like digital twinning. I mean, these were things that we couldn't even have conceived of a decade ago. So I think the future is here, but it's also coming.
I'm so glad that you mentioned AI as well. There's a lot of talk about an AI-enabled future, an AI-enabled workplace. Where do you think that's going to bring us as humans when it comes to the workplace?
I have to be honest, I'm not a huge AI proponent. Now, I understand that AI also is like an enormous sort of spectrum. So where it can work in the background and assist in discovery, it's incredible. But when we start talking about AI and its replacement of humans, I start to feel a little bit nervous. I mean, just this week, a group of nonfiction authors are suing AI developers, ChatGPT and Microsoft, for basically using all of their work product to train these machines and saying, you've stolen what we've created. So I have a lot of fear about what AI could be from a negative point of view. So I hope that it will get rid of the crap work for people and allow us to be more human. And maybe this is fantasy, but I'd love to see a world where as AI takes jobs away from people, that the money that is saved by these giant corporates actually goes into a fund for universal basic income so that people can have the opportunity to discover what they actually want to do with their day as opposed to the things they have to do to put food on the table. Curiosity is absolutely a muscle. It needs to be exercised. I think that emotional intelligence is the same. I mean, the data on this isn't great. We know that empathy is dropping. We see narcissism increasing. Again, not a great combo. One of the other things that we're seeing also is as children are taught more and more towards standardization, what they're being taught is that there is a single right answer to every question. And what that means is they become adults that believe there's a single right answer to every question. I hope that emotional intelligence doesn't become seen as a liability someday. But, hopefully when AI takes some of the lousy jobs, what left will be humans being human. And when you have someone like the chief innovation officer from Nike saying that wonder is his superpower, if we can have more people saying things like that, then perhaps we can stay connected to the need for these very pro-social emotions.
Are there challenges that you still see in the current world of work that are not at all getting solved still or kind of being ignored?
I mean, still, I think there is a real problem with dehumanization of workforces. We still see humans as widgets, and certainly that may improve, or maybe they'll just become a different kind of widget, right? That manages the AI widgets. I think that we still don't appreciate burnout and the negative mental health results of a lot of work environments. I think that a lot of leaders are not taking ownership over toxic work environments. They seem to think that they can just put a few initiatives in and fix it. The reality is that corporate culture is the wake we see behind a series of behaviors until people start behaving in ways that create cultures that are truly authentic, that truly welcome people. I think it's going to continue to be a challenge. I mean, one of the things that I keep going back and forth on, and it's something that we saw come out of the pandemic, of course, this phrase quiet quitting. I think that we're moving away from a time where work defines us, where it is our sole purpose. And I think that employers are really struggling with that. They want that level of, work yourself to death kind of commitment that maybe they were forced to endure. And so they expect the people under them to do that. But I think we're moving to a place where people see work as a component of their life and not the full purpose and meaning. And that maybe is a little scary for employers. And I don't know how they're going to handle that. I fear that it will not be carrot, it will be stick, but we'll see.
And finally, what are the changes that you are hoping to see in the near to distant future in the world of work?
I want there to be a world where there's not rubbish work, where there's not lousy work, where people aren't putting themselves in physical jeopardy to do certain activities, that all of that is taken away. I'd love to see a world where people are given the time and the resources to discover what actually matters to them. People now are living longer. We're saying that if 100, 150 is not unheard of for someone that might be born today. So if that's the case, maybe we delay people entering the workforce for a period of time so that they can really connect to what matters to them. I would love to see a world with no billionaires, because billionaires, not necessarily empathetic, have too much control over the way that we work. And if we have to have them, then I'd love to see a UBI fund funded by those billionaires so that people, again, are given the time, the resources to discover what really matters to them. But at the end of the day, we'll all still be humans. And what do humans want? We want autonomy, we want mastery, we want purpose, we want connection, we want belonging. And so I would love to see a world of work that offers that. And if they can't offer it, then to help them find it in some other way in their experience.
Monica mentions the well-documented copyright infringement lawsuits by authors, creators, publishers against the big AI companies who use their work to train their deep learning models. Today, it would appear that things are settling down somewhat, with the big publishers and creators doing deals with large AI players. There's no shortage of fear out there and dire warnings when it comes to AI. But the glass half full people are exploring the potential of AI to improve productivity, create new jobs, and above all, strip existing jobs of the mundane and free up time for that human curiosity and for research and creativity. The question of AI's impact on work is undoubtedly a complex one. We spoke with Josh Bersin to dive a little deeper.
My name is Josh Bersin. I'm an industry analyst in human resources and leadership and HR technology. I've been doing this about almost 30 years. There's really an existential change taking place, and it falls into two or three categories. One is, of course, the labor market is very low unemployment rate in most countries. People are very disconnected from their employers because of remote work, hybrid work, flexible work. People have gig projects, gig work, so it's very hard for employers to hang on to workers the way they used to. So there's a lot of demand for improved pay, improved flexibility, improved benefits so that employers can maintain the workforce they have. The second, of course, is automation and AI. Every single job in every single company is being automated to some degree in some fashion. And so companies are spending a lot of time thinking about how do we improve the productivity of all the people we have, especially since it's so hard to hire. Are we going to redesign these jobs? Are we going to move people around into new roles? And then the third is organizations as a whole are getting flatter and more what we call dynamic. Companies used to be very hierarchical and very rigid. The business community, the business world is changing so fast that companies find that approach is just not allowing them to keep up. So there's much more distributed authority and autonomy. HR people have a very, very, very important role right now, and I think it's maybe the most important it's ever been. I think that everybody's job is going to be affected by AI tools that do things that we used to do by hand, looking for information, learning about something, searching for, a piece of technology or a tool that you need to do your job, asking somebody a question and not knowing who to ask, figuring out how to advance your career. AI is going to make all those things easier and easier and easier. But the jobs that are going to be new that I think are really cool, interesting new jobs, is managing and curating and caretaking these AI systems. The AI systems are not as intelligent as you think. They're basically data-driven systems. If you're a hospitality firm or like a retail firm, and you're building a new application for employee development or onboarding or training or support, the utility to the employees is just massive. But somebody's got to take care of that. It's not a typical IT system where you just buy it and turn it on. It's sort of a living, breathing thing. So there's going to be a lot of interesting new jobs around managing and improving the AI systems. And then for all of those of us that use them, we're just going to have to get comfortable with using these more intelligent interfaces.
I mentioned at the beginning of the episode that we'd look at how AI might influence the future of work, but also how the existential shift caused by the pandemic might influence how and why we work. Josh spoke to us about the interplay between these two major recent developments.
There is a push to move people back to offices because they miss the social relationships and the face-to-face time they had. And so that's what hybrid is about, is finding a way to bring that into the remote work environment. But almost every study I've seen, including studies that look at retention and employee engagement, shows that every worker, virtually every worker, wants more flexibility and freedom and autonomy in their work experience. Imagine if this Apple Intelligence stuff is any good, which I'm sure it will be over time. We'll be talking to our phones. The phones will be sending emails for us, communicating with people. We'll be able to do real-time video conversations from anywhere. I mean, why do I need to be in an office if everybody I work with is on the other side of the country? Just because my boss wants me sitting around the office? It's going to look sillier and sillier. So we're going to be much more descriptive as to why we're coming together and what we're planning on doing when we come together. I'm not saying, though, the world is going to be all remote. I know this in our business and every company I've ever talked to. Face-to-face relationships are different. People are still going to get together. There's still going to be buildings. But I don't think we're going to go back to the world where everybody has to drudge themselves through the traffic every single day to show up and sit at their desk and then go home that night. I just don't think that's going to happen again.
So how do we distill these big existential questions down and turn them into practical challenges that we can understand so that we can start to come up with solutions that apply to our own teams and organizations?
There's a lot of stress and change in the role of a manager or a leader. I would say there's two categories of things that companies and individuals are dealing with. One is most companies don't have managers as gatekeepers or caretakers of work. Managers are more like coaches or facilitators or team leaders. So if you think, the supervisor of the restaurant is going to tell everybody what to do and everybody's going to go to the supervisor every time they need help, you're operating in the past. The second part is this issue of managing many generations. Because of the low unemployment rate and because of the stress that people went through from the pandemic, employees are really willing to speak up. They want authority and autonomy over their jobs. That is very different from managing a bunch of people that wait to be told what to do and expect the manager to set all the rules. The next big issue I see in work is what I call the super worker. Once we all have these various AI systems or whatever we might call them, I doubt we're going to call them AI forever, we'll call them something else, but every employee can generate more value or more economic or productive value than ever before because we have access to these sort of superpowering machines around us. Well, and that means we can run companies with fewer employees doing more things at higher levels of productivity. If you look at the revenue per employee at a GDP level, the amount of revenue generated per worker in the United States is skyrocketing compared to what it was 20, 30 years ago, which means that each individual employee has much more importance than they did before. I think companies are going to get smaller. I think small companies are going to outperform big companies. I think companies that can learn how to build what I call talent density, very small collections of high-performing people, are going to outperform big bureaucratic companies that don't take advantage of the power of individuals. And so these intelligent systems that we have are going to change the nature of the sort of the economic balance between the worker and the rest of the company, which is good for people. It means wages can go up, jobs can be more fulfilling, and companies can become more profitable. So I think this wave of technology is going to be really good for businesses and the economy in general.
So the how, why, and when of work is changing for most of us. Even if AI can't replace us, a large language model will never cut hair, manage empathetically, or truly think creatively. It will certainly impact how we recruit or apply for those jobs, how we organise our workday, and how we interact with each other. But I think it's fair to say that it won't affect everyone equally. There are some sectors certainly that are more impacted, but also certain generations. Younger people entering the workforce are more likely to use AI and to be experts in using AI tools. And they're also looking at the world of work and asking, how can we change this so that it aligns more with what we care about? Jenny spoke with Dr. Kelly Monaghan.
I'm Dr. Kelly Monaghan, and I lead our Upwork Research Institute. So I get the pleasure of every day thinking about what's happening in the future of work. And so we field surveys, we talk to executives, and then most importantly, we also get to see what's happening on our platform and the way that clients and freelancers are interacting on a daily basis. Today, our current workforce is one of the most diverse that we've seen, and is going to continue to get more and more diverse. Right now, I think this generational shift is about ready to happen this year, in particular across the globe, where we're going to actually see more Gen Zers than we do baby boomers in our organizations. And I think that's going to be a profound shift when it comes to the way that Gen Z is thinking about the work, the way they're thinking about work-life balance, the way that they're thinking about where their careers fit into the broader structure of their lives. And I think the more that they come into the workforce, the more shift and change that we're going to see that we don't necessarily see today.
How has this sort of generational shift actually changed, I suppose, the structure of the workforce, and what kind of trends is that bringing up right now?
So, if we're going to be honest, I think so much of people today really struggle with work. And I think Gen Z is taking a step back and observing this and thinking, well, what can we change about the way that we approach work? Work feels fundamentally broken. And we know the concept of even a job is only 150 years old or so, really, with the birth of the Industrial Revolution. So I want to give ourselves some grace. We're still fairly new at the way that we're organizing ourselves and our workplaces. But Gen Z is coming in and saying, I want to work differently. I don't necessarily want to be tethered to one organizational model. I've seen too much turmoil, too much layoffs, too much of what I'm calling this lack of allure that's happening in corporate cultures today. They don't necessarily want to be a part of that. They want to choose to work differently. And so because of technology, because of online platforms, they're able to really think about and structure their work very differently than even my generation as an elder millennial had the opportunity to do. And so what we see in our recent research is that Gen Z is highly educated, who is highly skilled. They're choosing to manage more of a portfolio of work as opposed to being tethered and working that traditional 9-to-5 job over the course of 20 years. There's a lot of friction today in this multi-generational workforce as we're undergoing this shift. As I do a lot of this research, baby boomers and leaders who are getting ready to exit are looking to transfer their knowledge to the next generation of workers. And with the problem that we're seeing across the globe is that there's not enough Gen Zers and young people coming into the workforce at the rate in which baby boomers are retiring. And that's leaving for us a bit of a knowledge gap, a skills gap. And I think, as I've talked with baby boomers and leaders, they're looking to leave their legacy. And, really the ground beneath them has shifted tremendously between COVID, the pandemic, generative AI coming onto the scene. Really also, if we're going to talk about just global unrest that's occurring. So this is a difficult time, to be honest with you. One, to be alive, and two, certainly to be working. And so I think what we see in our workplaces is a lot of this conversations happening, Gen Z wanting to have really tough conversations about what's happening in the world. And yet older generations grew up where you check that at the door. This is the workplace. We don't talk about that here. And I think that's where you see some of this tension and friction occurring. I think it's going to take some time for us to really figure this out and get this right. I think the challenge that we're seeing today that makes us unique is that the pace and speed of which we're having to upskill is much faster than in times before. And so what we see in our recent research is that Gen Z freelancers in particular, they're much more likely to have obtained a certificate in AI today. They're much more likely to be using it every day in their workflows. And so I think this is going to be interesting to see, how do we make sure that the full-time workforce continues to evolve and adapt at a rate in which we're seeing the freelance market respond much more quickly.
And do you think that the response from industry needs to change in terms of what we view as upskilling?
Jenny, I love that question. And my answer is absolutely yes. So much of the way that we structure work and the way that we measure performance is around what have you done for me lately and how have we drove efficiency? I can't think of any performance structure that measures, well, what did you learn this year? How did you actually upskill and gain and create something new? And that requires more capacity and slack in our system in order to give people longer runways in order to learn. And so what I really hope in the quest of this, generative AI forcing function that's happening in many organizations today is that we realize we can either double down and make this an efficiency play, or we can make this an opportunity to actually create value and think about the way that we're delivering value to our customers differently. In order to do that, I need to give the space and time for my workforce to learn and adopt these new tools. So I think this is a big wake-up call for HR leaders to double down on learning, not efficiency at this time. The majority of education institutions don't quite have a generative AI bachelor's degree you can go get. And so what's happening is industry is forcing certifications, and there's much more self-directed learning. And as skill sets, especially around machine learning, statistics, data science, generative AI become so important, it's going to be interesting to see, is certification and self-directed learning pathways that actually more efficient and valuable pathway for people to apply as opposed to a traditional four-year degree. Now, I say that, and I want to make sure I say this nuance. I am a huge believer in education, and I do think the purpose of education is to teach us how to learn and make critical judgment, and quite frankly, be human and understand ethics. And I think that is going to be as important as we talk about machine learning and AI, because that's going to become such an important skill set. So we need humans able to come into the loop and make those judgment and ethical considerations that I'm not sure a certificate program is the right way. Oftentimes, traditional education is better at that.
Generation Alpha then is the next one after Gen Z, and 10 years from now, there'll be today's Gen Zers who are coming into this workforce. And can you see, based on looking back over how generations have changed the world of work over the years, like what kind of predictions do you see happening when that Generation Alpha does start to come into the world of work?
I think there's going to be two critical shifts. The very first is, we're early stages of figuring out this technology, especially generative AI and AI agents, and how this is going to disrupt a lot of the bureaucracy and administrative work that takes up our workplaces. I do think if we're going to go out 10, 15 years from now, a lot of that conversation is going to be solved for. We will be working alongside AI agents who are able to automate and really complete a lot of the work that humans are doing today. And so that creates a second question is, well, then what is the work that we should be doing? How do we start creating new kinds of work and structures? And this is where I get actually really excited and optimistic about the upcoming generation. There are so many problems to be solved. So I think, we have this conversation of, well, what are people going to do? There's a lot that we should be doing that we don't have time and capacity for right now. Whether that's trying to figure out the food scarcity crisis, whether that's trying to figure out climate change, whether that's trying to figure out how do we help alleviate poverty within a lot of our cities today. There's so much that we can be doing with the best of our cognitions and capacity that, quite frankly, we just haven't had the time and capacity to focus on because we've been really figuring out how to create productive societies, which have been great. So I see the next generation restructuring work much more around societal value problems.
So what is in store for the future of work? How quickly will we see the change? Will the change be equitable? And will it improve people's livelihoods and working conditions? In a post-pandemic world and with a growing suite of enabling technologies, it's likely that we will never return to a world of work as it was. What Dolly Parton called the 9 to 5 with grueling 5-day commutes and quick lunch at the desk. While the technology was mostly already there to enable many of us to work remotely, it was really only that major shift in practice that opened people's eyes to how much could be done in a day without sacrificing, say, more time with family. While we can all point to the benefits of interacting in real life in the office, and some of that is already returning, the genie is likely out of the bottle when it comes to the question of work-life balance and the attractiveness of eschewing the commute for at least part of the week. I don't believe the question of where we'll work has by any means been fully settled as yet. And as for the well-worn arguments about AI replacing jobs, well, my role sees me regularly chatting to business leaders, and I'm always heartened to see that what seems to excite them most is the ability to use AI to take the mundane administration tasks from their teams and free them up to learn and explore and be innovative. It comes back to that question of curiosity and purpose, and there's an entire generation coming into the workplace who expect to have the space and tools to pursue these. We have much to learn from them. As for some of those already in the workforce for whom the whole AI discussion evokes fear, responsible leaders must ensure they get the support, tools and upskilling to work in this new future of work. I, for one, hope that we can use the benefit of emerging and existing technologies, like AI, to always be improving how our teams work and live, granting them more time for that all-important curiosity that begets innovation and creating a more equitable and, ironically, human world of work. This series is curated by the Silicon Republic team and produced by Shaun and Maurice. The interviews were conducted by myself and Silicon Republic editor Jenny Darmody. The podcast is part of Future Human on Silicon Republic, and for more great content, from filmed fireside chats to deep dive articles, visit siliconrepublic.com/future-human. Thanks again to our series sponsor Hays, the experts in recruitment and workforce solutions.